Hello, dear ones, and welcome to New Thought Today, a place where we get together and talk about the current, past, and future of New Thought. My co-host, Reverend Briz, is down at the Conference of Americas down in Chapala, Mexico, and obviously he couldn't be here with us today, but I'm sure he'll have a rousing report when he comes back to share with us some of the activities and ideas and the exchange of knowledge and energy that is taking place down in Latin America. So I want to welcome you here today. It's been a great week and a great weekend. I just returned as well as Robert. Reverend Robert just left Missouri, Unity Village, and went down to Mexico. We had the Celebrating Our Soul conference over at Unity Village, and that ended on Sunday, and Monday morning, bright and early, on Sunday night, he headed down to Mexico. And so today I thought I was hoping to get a guest with us from the conference, but everybody's trying to get caught back up right now. And so what I wanted to do was just look at this idea of how New Thought is beginning, or at least putting a great amount of effort to be more inclusive globally, right? So we know early in the year there was a conference over in Africa. Then there was the Celebrating Our Soul conference in Unity Village this past weekend, which was primarily for New Thought practitioners and ministers of the African diaspora. And now we're down in Chapala, Mexico, where there's a dual language Spanish and English translation. And what a concept, what an idea of how we begin to get these teachings everywhere. I mean, literally everywhere. Because, if we just look at what's going on right this moment down in Mexico, we have Kathy Ann Lewis out of Seattle, senior minister at Center for Spiritual Living in Seattle. She's going to be one of the keynote speakers. Reverend Ryan, who's, excuse me, who's out of California, is going to be there. We are going to experience, when we hear the results, and hopefully get a chance to look at some of the recordings if they are having them, how this teaching can elevate the life of everyone. Excuse me, regardless of location or culture or any of those things that appear or sometimes are presented as barriers to applying this knowledge, this teaching, across continents, across culture, across ethnicity, and begin to show how this teaching, these principles, can be utilized to uplift and empower all people, all communities, and all societies. And so, first and foremost, I'd like to just say, hey, if you're in the audience and you have a question or you want to chime in on the conversation, please do so in the chat. We have Brother Wayne with us today, and glad to see you here. And if anyone else wants to put their name in, please do so. But I think we're at a point in history, both spiritually and socially, all right, or collectively, where we have to begin to understand the oneness of everything that is in this universe, that how everything is connected, and begin to look at how do we not only empower our lives, but the lives of others. And one way to do that is with these principles of upliftment and self-reliance and service and community, knowing that when we are able to allow people to learn, not just be taught to, but to learn through experience and be able to understand that idea of oneness, that idea of service, that idea of allowing everyone to reach their zenith, then we begin to see the beauty of the world. Then we begin to see these new thought principles and actions. Because one thing I can say, we had the Celebrating Our Soul conference over in Unity Village, and we had, unity, science, religious science was there, Science of Mind. We had UFBL. We had independent people or organizations there. And the one thing that was clear, although there were different organizations represented, regardless of the affiliation that someone might have been attached to, the idea that these principles can be used to not only address personal issues, but social and economic injustices and upliftment throughout the world. And so, there were questions asked like, how do we deal with diversity, and how do we deal with creating social change and social uplift, and how do we become active agents, active ambassadors of this work called New Thought, of changing our mind, changing our thinking, and changing our lives, which is a very popular, if you will, statement now. We see often on TV, through commercials and programs, we see where terms that were just a few years ago relegated to woo-woo thinking, if you will, like manifestation and visioning and meditation and health and wellness at a much deeper level, that was mainly contained within the spiritual New Thought community. And now it is a popular event. It is a popular statement. It is something that the broader culture has picked up, but it appears only they're doing it at a surface level. So that's an opportunity for us in the New Thought community to step up, to be able to go deeper, to provide experiences and teachings and relationships and communities that support these ideas that we know through personal encounter with them and personal uplift and motivation, and in a lot of cases, I would say, getting us from point A to point B. It allows us to do that with examples, with heartfelt stories, with practical tools to allow us to do that, right? Because you think about it. Think about the individual, just at an individual level. We don't, I mean, because obviously we need to start with the individual, right? But these same ideas carry over. These ideas of coping with stress or trauma or emotional challenges or practical everyday inequities that we may be facing based on gender or race or creed or class or all these things that separate or appear to separate us, or we use to separate us, is ideas like this, of this coming together across the spectrum, regardless of the organizational structure, to support an idea that helps uplifts, and support all. And so we are beginning to see, especially as we have these organizations or these conferences dedicated to a certain population, not exclusively. Everyone is welcome. We had all manner of people in Unity Village, and I know the same is true for Chapala, Mexico. And so we're beginning to see how we're the same at a core level, at a spiritual level. And so the idea of being able to teach these principles through example, through being involved in the community, is beginning to be more prevalent and beginning to be more asked for, if you will, in terms of how we as spiritual practitioners begin to engage. Now, one of the topics that I think it's in all spiritual and religious spheres right now, I would say, but I know it's key in the New Thought community, is this idea of social justice and what it is, and this idea of diversity and what it is and what it contributes to everyday life. And you would think that it would be obvious. You would think that it would be obvious, but in some cases, it's not so obvious. And so one thing that these conferences are doing, I think, it's allowing the people who are involved in these activities from a cultural perspective to be able to articulate that, to be able to speak from their perspective about what are some of the issues that we face, what are practical ways to address them, what are some events that we can come together, to bond together, to work together, to erase stigmas that might appear on the outside. And so, it's a great opportunity for us as New Thought leaders and practitioners to begin to expand. I know oftentimes in New Thought teachings, people have accused us of only for self, looking out for self, and prosperity only for self, and it's an inside out thing per individual. But we know that the teachings of the divine are universal. They are personal in particular, but they are global in terms of a broad spectrum, in terms of how it can be applied. So I would love if someone's out there that may be listening and may have attended the conference to chime in. That would be a great thing to talk about their experiences or ideas that they may have about how we begin to continue to bridge the gap, continue to stay relevant as New Thought practitioners in a world that is ever changing. And so I know from an African American perspective, we had such dynamic leaders there as Dr. Michael Beckwith. We had Dr. Sherry James, Dr. Andrea Earl. I mean, we had such a lineup of dynamic African American New Thought leaders providing guidance, practical steps, and examples of what it takes to allow these principles to be infused in all areas of our life. And the closing moment of the conference was presented by keynote speaker Dr. Deborah Johnson, who did a piece on diversity and what that means, and and how we activate it and how we allow it to be really the cornerstone of existence. Because when we look at any natural environment, whether it's a rainforest or a desert or a cloud forest, in any of these situations, there is a oneness that takes place. There is a connectedness that is involved with this whole idea of diversity that we could learn a lot from, that we can begin to observe and open up to and begin to really see what this idea of diversity means, right? One of the things she said is that, and I'd like to get someone's comment on it if they feel free, is that in a diverse environment, each element of that environment understands itself and how it fits in, right? So if we were in a rainforest, the mushrooms understand how they fit in, the trees, the animals, the insects. And so when we look at it at a human level, our white brothers and sisters have to understand what their idiosyncrasies are, what their bugaboos, if you will, are, that keep them from feeling fear or guilt or any of the things that would prohibit them or make them come slowly to the table. And the same thing for the Black community, and the same thing for the Asian community and the Latin community. We have to begin to first understand ourselves and what we provide, what we have, and then be able to come to the table and let's talk about it. Let's explore what we do, what needs to be done. Because it is only then that we can begin to harness all of the power, all of the presence of the divine that is in each and every one of us. That is in each and every one of us. So, a great question for each of us to begin to ask ourselves is, what are some of the important support networks, work efforts, and personal development that needs to be in place for us to continue to build our community. Now, that may be a tall order, because building a community is an inclusive thing. It includes everything, right? You look at your neighborhood or your city. When you talk about the city, it includes everything. It includes the administrators. It includes parks and recs. It includes garbage collection. It includes schools and education, hospitals, health and services. So there's all these different parts that make up your city or make up your town. And in that same vein, in that same idea, that's what it takes to build the spiritual community. These various parts that has a specialty in a certain area, if you will, but understands the give and take, understands the working together that allows the community, the city, the town, the organization, even down to the family, what it means to be inclusive, what it means to be truly empowered, what it means to understand and share educational knowledge, so that we sit on this foundation of information that allows us to grow, that allows us to be proactive and address issues as they appear, right? You think about right now, we have the Olympics going on, and we can see all of the various ways athletes from different perspectives have trained to be a part of a community, especially when you look at the team sports. When you look at the volleyball or the basketball or the soccer, even if you get down to, to two-player beach volleyball, where there's a team of two. When you look at the backstory of these individuals or these teams and the individuals that make them up, we begin to see what it takes to create a cohesive bond. We begin to see what it takes to be dedicated to a cause or dedicated to an idea. And to me, it's amazing when I look at some of these stories and I look at the personal injuries, if you will, that people have endured. The idea of fighting through it mentally and physically to return and to be able to provide to a team, and a team having perfect expectation and support of that individual and come out on top. Now that's the spirit that we need as we begin to create a world or continue to create a world. I think we've laid some groundwork, but we need to continue to work on it. A world that works for all, that works for everything. The planet, the people, the animals, the things seen and the things unseen. And so as we continue to have these conferences, I mean, you just think about it. We're just basically halfway through the year, and we've had New Thought Conference in Africa, several New Thought conferences here in the United States from the different agencies. We had the Parliament of World Religion, you had the Anton and International New Thought Alliance, and Science of Mind had theirs. I mean, we've had multiple, and now we have one in Chapala, Mexico, for the Avenue of Americas, that's bringing everyone from the American diaspora, primarily, or a cornerstone for the Latin American community or Latinx community. And it begins to show, if you will, the groundswell of this idea. It begins to show what's possible when we really allow these principles to guide our lives. To guide our lives, not just to inform our lives. I mean, because we got information coming from every place that you can think of. But having information and not applying it does very little. You may be able to have a conversation, you may be able to have a good debate, but in terms of putting things in place and activating certain ideas, that makes it very difficult. And so we want to continue and we want to ask, what is it do you think needs to be done for us to continue to move forward in these community building, justice seeking, educational and sharing ideas to create this world, to allow this continued budding of a world that works for all? Because it's important. Now, often in New Thought, and I know in religious science of mind, that there's this prosperity piece, right? And everyone wants prosperity. Everyone wants prosperity. But we must be clear that prosperity is not only money. We must be clear that prosperity is more than things, because to know that I have a friend that I can call if I'm in the dumps, right? And that will be able to provide me with first and foremost just a willing ear. Just the ear to listen, not to give advice, not to tell me what's right, what's wrong, but to be a heartfelt ear to allow me to state the case, whatever the case may be. Because I would submit, I know for myself, oftentimes, if I just have a willing ear to listen and allow me to vent and do whatever I need to do to get through it, oftentimes I come up with the viable solution or the resolution or the clear understanding of a thing just by that. I don't need any advice. I don't need any prodding. I don't need anyone to ask questions. Just a willing ear. That is prosperity. Because at that point, I can own it, right? I can feel that the Spirit has moved through me and helped me to work through this issue. So what is it going to take? What is it going to take for us as New Thought practitioners, as New Thought adherents, to move forward with these kinds of ideas, with these kinds of actions to create this world that works for all? That's what we're moving towards when we talk about how do we apply these ideas in the future. Not that we want to get too far in the future, but we have to have a vision. It says, if you don't have a vision, you perish, right? Because you lose sight of everything. But when you have a vision and you buy into that vision, and our vision is a world that works for all, where everyone can be valued and looked upon as an essential asset of the community, you get the best of people. Just think about it. Think about a time that you were part of some group, or you could have just been by yourself. But think of a time of how you felt. And here's you go. Here's a good example. Think about these two opposing ideas. Think about growing up and when you were at the playground and they were selecting teams for whatever it is, baseball, basketball, football, doesn't matter. There was a team effort, and they had two captains and they were picking sides. Think about how you felt when you were one of the first people selected to be on a team, or one of the last people to be accepted on a team. And even then, it was a little bit begrudgingly. You know, it got down to you and it was just, well, that's the only person left, so all right, he's on my team or she's on my team. Think about how you felt, whether when you were one of the first people selected or the last person selected. That there's a sense of value, not in a monetary way or not in some strange way, but a way of value that speaks to the idea that they understand who I am. They know what I bring to the table. They are conscious and aware of how I can contribute to the whole. And isn't that what we need today? Look around. We need everybody on point on all fronts, whether it's climate, whether it's education, whether it's politics, whether it's healthcare. Pick a front. And we need people who are valued. We need people who are confident and understand that prosperity comes in many ways and it's not just money. And then once we can tap into that, because if we go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? If a person cannot feel physically sustained or satisfied, meaning food, clothing, and shelter, and we can put that in any one of the realms that we as human beings live in, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual, if we don't have those platforms to be firmly established, it becomes very challenging for us to move forward with some of these greater aspirations of building a community or creating emotional healing for a community, because we're still struggling with ourselves. We have not found our own footing, and so now we're in a place to where, you know, we have to begin to say, all right, well, what's next? What's next? And so that's what we are learning. That was one of the takeaways that I had from the Celebrating Our Soul conference in Unity Village over the weekend, and the theme was consciously creating change. Consciously creating change. And so, you know, that's where we want to pick up after I've got a couple of just, you know, announcements and commercials here that we want to play to let you know what we do here at New Thought Media Network, and how we are striving to be conduits of great entertainment, great information, great involvement. And so I'm going to bring up a couple of commercials just to let you know who we are, what we do, and then we'll be back, and we want to look at this idea of consciously creating change. So stick right there. We'll be right back.
The New Thought Men's community proudly presents New Thought Men's Summit, Foundations, an online conference, September 22nd through 27th. Register today at www.newthoughtmens.community, featuring 22 New Thought speakers, ministers, and visionaries, sharing their wisdom of modern spiritual masculinity. New Thought Men's community, empowering wholeness, centered in spiritual living.
New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
And we're back. This is New Thought Today. Happens every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Mountain Time, where we get together and look at the ideas of New Thought, past, present, and future. How it cultivates great living, how it provides service to individuals and to communities, and allow us to be in touch with that divine spirit that is within each and every one of us. And so just before we took the break, I brought up the theme that was used at the Celebrating Our Soul, which was a conference in Unity Village for practitioners of New Thought from African descent from various organizations. And the theme of that conference was consciously creating change. Consciously creating change. Now, you know, if we were to take all three of those words and just break them down individually, we would really begin to feel, I believe, what's required, what we have to do, and what we need to continue to do to be the world's change agents. Now, you know, it was a statement made, you know, about this idea of wokeness, right? Being awoke. And in a lot of ways, being awake is synonymous with being conscious, right? And there was a statement made by Reverend Dr. Deborah Johnson, who said, this word awake or woke is something that everyone is looking forward to when they go to bed at night. You are looking and hoping to wake up, to be awoke, to awaken. Yet we've allowed popular culture, for lack of a better way of explaining it, to take a word that means to be alive, that means to be aware, that means to be conscious. We've allowed them to coin that or phrase that or to use that as something bad, as something that is undesirable. But I would ask each and every one of us, aren't you looking forward to being awakened in the morning? Aren't you looking to be awakened when you're wrestling with the problem, or you're looking for answers, or you're trying to elevate yourself to another level, whatever that level may be? That's what it means when we talk about being conscious. Not so much physically conscious. And yes, we want to be physically conscious. We want to be aware of our surroundings and use our senses. But in this case, in a spiritual perspective, when we say we want to be conscious, that means we want to know what are the elements that make up our world. We talk about this diversity, this DEIB stuff. What does it mean to have diversity, equity, inclusion, and the big one, belonging? From that conscious perspective, what is it that we want? What is it that's needed to continue to elevate the whole world? Just think about it. Just think about it. It's now, 2024, and the computer, I would say, effectively came out and was front and center for the popular community around 1978. We're talking a very short period of time. We're talking about 50 plus years, and we've gone from a instrument, if you will, that was a real high-end calculator, if for lack of a better word. We know it was more than that, but to put the contrast to something that can now translate languages, can interpret your voice, can allow us to view events that happen all over the world instantaneously. Now, you speak of conscious. You speak of consciousness. There is a consciousness there in this mechanism, in this ability for us to go from stage to stage, elevating our ideas, elevating our physical environment, elevating our understanding of how the world works, that we want to be conscious. We want to be awake. We want to be woke to the things that allow us to continue to display the grace of God, the magnificence of God, or the divine, or spirit, or what label we put on this infinite intelligence that allow us to bring these things forth. I like quantum physics. I don't say I understand it to its nth degree like a physicist, but think about, they built the the Hadron Collider over in Switzerland, and they had these speculations of being conscious, of being aware, of watching how things unfold, and they had the idea that, okay, we're going to go to the next word, consciously creating. We're going to create an apparatus that will allow us to take 2 photons of light and send them around this centrifugal force machine and then collide them together and see what happens. See, let's see what's created. Let's see what appears. And there were a lot of speculations about the different things that they would see. There was a particle called the Higgs boson, which they call the God particle, and all these different things that they had to speculate. And when that happened, based on their conscious creativity and awareness, these elements appeared or were produced or were revealed in very close proximity to what their conscious creation anticipated. Now, that brought forth all kinds of new apparatuses, new theories, new ways of looking at the world, of understanding the world. We have to do that same thing in New Thought spirituality, or spirituality, period. We have to begin to have these kinds of conversations, these conferences, these think tanks. We need to begin to set up some think tanks that begins to say, what happens when we consciously create change? What happens when we can get a group of people together where everyone's valued, where everyone is able to contribute and has something to contribute, to allow us to create this world that works for all, to allow every aspect of our being to be brought forth for change. Now, how many, I know in a lot of ways, change is scary, right? I'd rather stay with what I know than to step into some unknown is a common phrase. But I would submit, if you look back over your own life, it's in those moments where you stepped into the unknown where you grew the most, where you learned the most. Now, that's not maybe in every case. Yeah, we know. But I would say 80-20, 85-15% of those times when we were put in a situation where there was an unknown and we had to step into it, we learned something valuable. We learned something that was unique about us, about a situation, about an environment. And we have a comment here that explore the differences in our weaknesses, Andrea. And we thank you for that, because that's what it does. We begin to see when we're faced with change, we can begin to look at ourselves and when we don't want to move in that direction and say, why? What's keeping me? Even when the change we understand is going to be good, we're still hesitant. Why? We're thinking some weakness, as was just indicated, may be exposed, may be revealed. But that's just a matter of perspective. What's considered a weakness and a strength, right? Because there are certain martial arts, if we look at those, like Tai Chi or maybe Aikido, where I take your strength and use a weakness against it, if you will, to get out of a situation, to overcome an opponent or an attacker. And so we have to begin to look at the world differently. That's what it means to consciously create change. Just because if I'm creating something, that means theoretically it doesn't exist right now, or it's not visible right now, or not utilized right now. And so when we talk about consciously creating change, we begin to really open our minds. We begin to really allow the spirit of intelligence, the spirit of the divine, to move through us, to allow us to look at the world differently. And so I'm asking myself these questions. How can I be better in applying this information? How can I be more astute? How can I be an example to anyone and everyone that's looking for a way to be consciously creating change in their life, whether it's change in finances, whether it's change in health, whether it's change in community activists, whether it's change in prosperity. Because we know that things change, and if they're shepherded, if you will, in the right manner, they change for the good. They change for the betterment. And don't think one person, i.e. you or me, can't bring forth some creative idea, some creative thought that will change the world. We have plenty of examples of those, of one person creating a change, creating a movement, starting an awareness, awakening people to wake up to an idea for a time that has come so that we move forward. And that's what, I'm so excited about. Now, I didn't make the conference in Avenue, Conference of Americas down in Chapala, Mexico. It's an annual conference. It will be conducted next year. And I look forward to being there with my Latinx brothers and sisters to understand how this teaching, these concepts, these principles apply to a whole nother culture, to a whole nother expression. How have they been attentive enough and awoke enough, to consciously create change in their environment using these principles? Think about it. There's a whole difference in how the two cultures of the United States, if you will, and Mexico, in terms of most stuff, politics, education, community, the whole nine. But how have they used these principles and applied them so that now they are in a position to have a conference for Latin American or Latinx individuals, to bring forth their genius, to show their creative essence and excellence of how these principles are used. And that's what that's the thing that we try to do here on this show and on this network, is to create a platform and to create a conversation and to establish feedback dialogues where we can begin to understand this, where we can begin to implement this in a way that says, yes, I can. And yes, we can. When we realize that there's a oneness in the universe and that we come together as this force of hands and feet and minds of the divine, that we are allowed to express the uniqueness of creation. Each one of us has a heart and lungs and all of the physical similarities. But the way we think and the way we express is unique to each one of us, all expressing that divine idea that created us from an idea. Think about it. We were created, each one of us on this planet, as human beings, that is, we'll start there, were created because of an idea of our mothers and fathers getting together. However that happened, whatever the impetus was. But it was an idea first that brought them together and that eventually created us. Now, you're talking about consciously creating change. And maybe, In some cases, it may not have been that conscious when your mother and father got together. But there was definitely a creative change that took place. And as a result of that, you are here. I am here. We are here. And so it is now the time. If we really believe these teachings, if we really begin to use these teachings and see how they work, we'll begin to have more interactions with different cultures and people of different languages. I mean, we have communities over in the Ukraine. We have communities in London, in the UK. We're beginning to expand these ideas in a way that is palatable, that we can see the results, that we can see the change that they are making, and not in some forced way, but by presenting the principles and ideas and allowing the people and the culture and the environment of the particular places where it is planted to grow to fit that environment. You know, one of the lessons we learned from the diversity of an environment is that we understand that if you plant a seed or you plant a plant, that plant begins to create an environment to support itself, or it attracts the things it needs for it to flourish. And that's what we want to do right now, all across the globe, is to allow these principles of oneness and unity and creative consciousness and social awareness to be able to reverse some things that are not conducive to our continuation on the planet, but move forward to a family of mankind, the family of humanity, where we allow the genius of each and every one of us to shine through. And there's no better platform, I believe, than New Thought, that is based on this idea, this concept that if you change your thinking, you can change your life. If you begin to consciously create, you can change your life. You can have an effect on the world and the world around you. And so we look forward to hearing back from Reverend Bridge when he gets back from Mexico and give us an update and let us know how things were, and give us this wonderful update of who we are striving to be with these teachings. Who are we striving to be, or who are we striving to become with these teachings? And so it's been my pleasure to be here with you today to just cultivate this idea of how this teaching is being spread across the globe, and how we're beginning to connect in different languages and different environments and different cultural points of view, but come into the understanding that these principles work in all environments. And as we continue to create a world that works for all, we begin to become more and more invested. We begin to become more and more conscious and awoke and awake to what needs to be done to create this world that works for all. That's acceptance and love, and sometimes it means debating, and sometimes it may even be upset, but it's not at a personal level. It's at a level of where we create this cauldron for us to understand and grow and look at things from a different perspective, so that we begin to say yes to life, and more importantly, yes to ourselves. And so thank you for being here. Look forward to seeing you next week, next Tuesday, as we bring this New Thought today and what it means to be a New Thought practitioner in a world that is ever changing. And so with that, I bid you farewell. I look forward to seeing you next week, and have a blessed rest of the day. And so it is. Amen.